welcome to Empowered. I'm your host, Jessica Flynn of thejessicaflynn.com, and our show is on a mission to unleash local wisdom for widespread impact. We're committed to inspiring positive change and empowerment in our small community and beyond. And today I'm so excited to welcome two guests to our set. Today we have the Director of Community Engagement for the Collingwood Climate Action Team, Laura Vermander, and the Supply and Sustainability Manager for the Georgian Bay Spirit Co., Jeff Young. Now, what would bring these two organizations together for this episode? Well, these two organizations are leading the charge in sustainability within our community. In their shared commitment to a greener future, whether through community action or pioneering green business initiatives, we're going to explore their efforts and how they're shaping a more sustainable economy for the South Georgian Bay region and beyond. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Laura and Jeff to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. So Laura, Jeff, we've been spending a lot of time together online working on a particular project, which we'll get to talk about later in the segment. But I thought we could start by getting acquainted with your individual organizations and what you're up to. So Laura, could you tell us about the startup story of the Collingwood Climate Action Team, which we will refer to as CCAT, a great acronym, and how you got started?
Sure. So we were started by a group of individuals who actually still sit on our board. A few of them still sit on our board. In the fall of 2019, they were inspired by a film called Resilience that was shot by a local filmmaker. And they founded CCAT and became a not-for-profit in the fall of that same year. And then in March 2022, we were granted our charitable status. And so we've been a charity since then.
That's an incredible accomplishment.
Yes, thank you.
And a lot of growth, especially during the pandemic.
Yes. Yeah. It was, actually, we had great growth, lots of engagement during the pandemic. It was a little bit of a pivot for the organization, but it was good.
Well, and I think during the pandemic we saw, oh, no one's traveling, we're not driving as much. Wow, we are producing a lot of carbon emissions when we are in our day-to-day lives.
Exactly. So it was good in that sense.
So we're going to explore a project that we have been working on together later on, but can you tell us what CCAT is typically up to? What kind of programming you offer?
So in the past, we had started off with doing different working groups in different areas, such as waste and consumption, sustainability. And then we moved into our carbon footprint challenge, which we worked with Project Neutral through, and we ran it across our whole community, and we compiled all the carbon footprints of over 400 households in our region.
Wow.
And compiled the data for our town, and we're just closing down that project now and moving forward with our 3 strategic priorities for this year, which include awareness, which are our workshops, so our climate cafes, where we bring people in to talk about their thoughts, feelings, emotions, anything that they want to share about climate change.
And that's interesting to share your emotions around climate change. I've been doing a little bit of facilitation work with a couple of climate groups, and I wasn't accounting for the emotion that comes along with how we all feel about what's happening. And you know, we're all parents, what kind of future our kids are going to be stepping into.
Yes, it brings up a lot of different emotions for people, and it's quite a unique experience where people can just sit down, it's facilitated by someone, and they can just freely share. It's not for making plans or actions, it's just a sharing experience to kind of connect with others in our community.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And we follow it up with, if you would like, how to talk about climate change. One of the big things we hear from people is that they don't know how to talk about it with friends and family. And so this is a workshop that sort of gives you some tips and strategies on how to have thoughtful conversation with people.
Laura, I'm thinking of another episode topic. How to talk about climate change. Good.
Perfect.
Excellent.
So those are our big workshops. We have a greening home energy program, so we're hosting a forum for builders and developers and much more in our community in the fall. And then we do a lot of advocacy work with the town in terms of building a relationship with staff and council, making sure that they're taking a climate lens to all decision and policy making that gets made in the community.
Yeah, the time is up. We always need to be talking about this, right?
Yeah. We declared a climate emergency in 2019, so we're working to, keep the town accountable and help and support them in what they're doing for that work.
And you're mentioning, like in what you're explaining there, it's really a multi-sector partnership. You've got charitable, nonprofit, you've got businesses, as well as now government. And so Jeff, at Georgian Bay Spirit Co., the company has really made a name for itself as a leader in sustainability in the beverage industry. So what prompted the company to explore and prioritize sustainable business practices?
Yeah, so at Georgian Bay Spirit Co., sustainability has always been a core value for us since the beginning. In the past 2 years, we've prioritized that. As kind of Laura spoke to, there's lots of ways to go about that. We've worked with some really good organizations over the past few years as well, and we're just going to continue to try to make changes internally, but as well as promote to other businesses what they can do to take those steps in the right direction.
And what's your role as the sustainability manager?
Yeah, so as a sustainability manager, I work with our organization in setting up partners we work with each year. So we've worked with Radical over the past few years, which is now part of the Bank of Montreal, to get our Climate Smart certification. What that is, it's a type of carbon accounting to understand what our footprint is, and that's, I think, the first step for a lot of businesses is to understand what effect you're having on the climate.
You don't know how to change if you don't know where you're starting.
Exactly.
Right?
It's about building a baseline, and once you have that baseline, you can set targets, right? So that's been a really great experience for us working with them. We understand, where emissions are coming from, which is a really big part as well, and how much you can internally change. There's a lot of different scopes when you're looking at carbon accounting, and some of them are harder to affect than other ones. So that's been really good. And then this year we worked with Georgian Bay Forever, another local organization.
Yes.
We're doing the carbon accounting, like I said, but we want to also physically do things as well with our organization. So this year we hosted some shoreline cleanups nationally. So we had Vancouver, we had Calgary, Edmonton, Red Deer, Toronto, even Saskatchewan, Manitoba. So we want to have our team involved as much as possible too. It's about building that culture in your company, which will kind of deliver the biggest changes. So
and ingraining, I would imagine, this mindset in everyone that's in your company.
Exactly.
Like this, it is a crisis. We all need to be thinking this way.
Exactly.
So you may be the manager, but you've got a team that's
and
thinking.
I just want to inspire people, right? At the end of the day, I think that's the biggest thing that I can do, and I want people to be a part of it, not to look at it as kind of a chore as your business, but it's exciting to be a part of. As we all know, like, consumers and customers want this too as well. They want to see organizations making a difference. So we see a huge opportunity from that as well.
Yeah, and we'll talk to a little bit later on about the actual impact that, I think green business, when you're doing it, not greenwashing, true green business and making a difference, it's good for business.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so this exciting new project that we're going to talk about a little bit. I can give a bit of backstory. So I've been doing some work with a not-for-profit organization called the Institute of South Georgian Bay, which kind of fills the cracks, I would say, in between a lot of individual organizations and facilitates conversation. So in the works for the last few years has been, how do we get businesses thinking like Georgian Bay Spirit Co? How do we get support around businesses who do want to change and grow and become more sustainable? And this idea that came from the community was a hub for resources to help businesses go green and reduce their carbon footprint. So Laura, can you tell us a little bit about what is a green economy hub? Who are we working with to help bring it to the region?
Right. So as you mentioned, the Climate Action Team, along with other stakeholders, have been working on this for the past few years in the background. And through some of that research and different projects that we've done along the way, we found Green Economy Canada. And they're a not-for-profit organization they run a service for, they have national hubs as well as a regional hub for organizations to join and do things like become a more sustainable business. And so they charge a fee for membership, and they and for that fee you get resources and training amongst all of that. And so
sometimes even like one-on-one support.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, coaching, training, workshops. There's tons that you get that they support their hub with. And so right now there's hubs in London, Ontario, Peterborough, Sudbury. There's hubs all over the country. And so we were looking to how do we create our own hub here in our region.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, looking at your experience with Georgian Bay Spirit Co., you have leaned on some other organizations, but could you speak to what you think the benefit of this? So the pilot project will be a cohort of businesses coming together. What do you think the benefit might be of that?
I think it's difficult to, especially if you don't have a dedicated department to sustainability, which most companies don't, but where do you get started? And I think a project like Laura's speaking to will be able to get your toes in the water, get started, which I think once you start doing that, you realize how much it affects your everyday operations in a positive way. And it's just working with other businesses, you can kind of provide examples of, like, well, what did you guys do? And, how did you deal with this problem? It's the sharing of that and communication between the businesses that could really help organizations just get started, right? And I think that's, for small and medium-sized businesses, there's a huge opportunity there for you as a business to differentiate yourself from potential competitors and attract more people to your company as well. So.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but are you finding that your consumers want to see you leading, and so it's easier for them to make green choices as well?
Definitely, like consumers are looking for it, and you mentioned greenwashing earlier. I think authenticity is really important, and that's why I think for me it's really important that we build that culture at Georgian Bay, which I'm already seeing huge changes and huge excitement within the organization. You want to be real when you're doing it, and you want to kind of speak to how you're making those changes internally. It's not about, doing things externally all the time, but what are you doing in your organization to help with climate change and reduce your emissions is key to that, to being authentic as a company.
Yes, absolutely. Practicing what you preach.
Exactly.
Leading by example.
Yeah.
And collaborating with like-minded other businesses. And I think before we go to break, Laura, you mentioned that Green Economy Hub has national hubs, but the regional hubs I think are such a great approach because every region has its own unique character, its own unique challenges, its own unique benefits to capitalize on. Like we're tourism, we are, what's the term? And like we have a lot of protected natural resources. So I think there's something really special about having one for our region.
Yes, and there is another hub near us, but as you mentioned, our region is quite unique, and parts of it are more rural than others, and so I think that gives us a good place to create our own hub for the community that we do live in here.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to go for a quick break, and when we get back, we will be talking with Jeff and Laura about some specifics of how you and fellow business owners can get involved in this exciting new initiative. We'll see you back soon on Empowered. I'm your host, Jessica Flynn. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm your host, Jessica Flynn, and today we are speaking with Jeff Young from Georgian Bay Spirit Co. and Laura Vermander from the Collingwood Climate Action Team. And Laura, we were introducing the concept of this Green Economy Hub, and we're hoping to bring one to the region through a pilot project, which would bring a cohort or two of local businesses. What is CCAT's role in pulling this all together?
So as we talked about before, we were working with other climate action teams, the Institute, to how can we make something viable. We found Green Economy Canada, and part of what their request was in order to do the pilot project was that they needed to have a local charitable organization to support the hub project. So that is what CCAT's role is.
You bravely put up your hand.
We bravely put up our hand, and the board gave their consent. And so our role is a lot of administrative in the back end of things, finding businesses, reaching out to them, doing some recruitment, and then talking to interested businesses, telling them about what the project is before we pass them along to Green Economy Canada so that they can learn more about some of the nitty-gritty details from them themselves.
Right.
And also some promotion, as well as hosting events so that businesses in the area can learn more about what the hub might look like, how they can join the cohort, answer questions, face to face rather than
Which is
always
always
doing
nice.
something over
Yeah,
Zoom.
so many Zoom calls. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're working obviously with lots of other players in the background, but that's our main role.
You're the glue.
The glue,
Pulling
a
it
little
all
bit. Yes,
together.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think the boots on the ground and having that human connection is so
Yes.
valuable.
Yeah.
And I think having local companies like Georgian Bay Spirit Co. is kind of an example of look what's possible. And now we're bringing this hub concept to the community so that it feels more maybe a smaller bite to take.
Yes.
Rather than, uncharted territory can be scary.
Yes.
There's also some expense involved in going green, but Jeff, can you talk to some of the benefits that your company has seen in investing in sustainability?
Sure. Yeah. So we, I think, kind of like what you said, like a lot of people associate dollars with sustainability. But if you look at it in a sense of reducing your fossil fuel consumption, that usually is a positive for the costs, your operating costs, as well as sustainability. So they do go hand in hand. Over from 2022 to 2023, we were able to reduce our CO2Es for the year by 10%, just making some operational changes internally for us, which was really good. I mentioned earlier, you have to be able to do things internally as well to speak to authenticity, and I think that's a huge win for us.
Right.
So very excited to be able to make some reductions within our organization. But yeah, there can be costs associated to it for sure. But a lot of times, if you're finding efficiencies, it's just reducing waste, right, at the end of the day, and you'll have savings there as well.
And you might be spending here, but then saving unexpectedly
Exactly.
here.
Might be a different bucket, but at the same time, it's often you'll see reduction in costs if you invest in sustainability as well.
And my very unscientific view too, just as a consumer, is if I'm looking at this product and this product, and I feel like the ingredients are fairly similar, but I know this one is better for the planet, I want to choose that. And I'm starting to look more consistently for products that are more responsible.
Yeah.
So are you finding that?
Yeah, for sure. Like consumers want to see businesses going green. I think it's really important. It's, obviously a huge benefit for us to have that as well. And we came out with a product this year called our eco-friendly gin, which we sold in Ontario as well as nationally. And that bottle it has a paper outside, and it's 6 times lighter than your average spirit. So we're saving on emissions right from the get-go. Produced here in Canada as well. So it's really, for us to come out with products, we want to kind of break the mold and be a disruptor in the alcohol industry. And I think this bottle, we were the first spirit company to come out with it in Canada. So
Congratulations.
huge win for us. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
thank
you for doing it here because it makes us all look good.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great being connected with that Collingwood community. And we do have our store open, and you can purchase that product right there. So it's if you want to come in and check that out, that'd be great.
We do want to come in and check
Yeah.
that out. That's so cool.
Of
And
course.
I would have never thought, I would have thought the product itself, we're not using any new trees. I'm not sure what the process is to make a glass bottle, but I would have never thought of the weight and the traveling is actually where you're seeing a big improvement. So I think it's fun to be surprised too.
For sure, and there's so many factors. I think there's a lot of gray in sustainability too, especially when you look at product life cycles. But like the eco-friendly gin's a great example of, a lot of people say like, oh, glass, great, it's fully recyclable. It's also very heavy, and to send that across the country or to send it to different markets can be expensive. So going back to reduction in cost too, if you're sending more lightweight stuff, it's cheaper to move across the country as well. So there's an exact example of where sustainability and cost reductions go hand in hand.
Yeah, I can't imagine the amount of work and research you've done to get to this new product. So what were some of the roadblocks and challenges that Georgian Bay Spirit Co. has come up against, and how did you overcome them in this process?
For sure, I think like for that bottle specifically, it took a few years to get that going. And I think you'll start to see, even when I'm looking through the food and drink, for example, through the LCBO, you see a lot of companies, especially in the alcohol beverage industry, like pushing sustainability, because I think there's a lot of opportunity there. The industry itself, like using glass, cans, paper, bottles, very sustainable from the get-go, just with recyclability. So there's a lot of huge wins in that industry already, but consumers want to see it. You're going to see more companies pushing the envelope there. There's always going to be challenges, but I think for a lot of businesses looking to get into it, it's about first steps, and it's a journey. You're not going to be carbon neutral or carbon zero tomorrow, but it's about planning for the future and trying to understand when you're making those decisions, factoring that in.
Yeah, and I think that idea of competition, what a great competition to be in. Like who can be the best for the environment.
For sure.
Yeah, that's the kind of competition we need to focus on.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're all inspired and excited about what's possible in business. And I should say too, the Green Economy Hub is not just for businesses, but any sort of organization that has a carbon footprint that can learn how to, reduce their emissions. So Laura, how can people learn about the Green Economy Hub? How can they participate? Do they have to join a cohort? Can they participate in other ways to support this initiative?
Yeah, there's lots of different ways. So in order to learn about it, you can visit our website, and we've got all the information there for everyone to read about. And then if you're interested, you can just fill in a short form and I will get in contact with you. And then from there, we can always just hop on the phone and I can answer questions. We're also hosting an event on October 3rd for businesses who are interested to come learn more about the green economy, maybe fill out an expression of interest and take the next steps there. Talk to us directly if you don't want to hop on the phone. So that's in Wasaga Beach on October 3rd. And so yeah, there's lots of touch points before making a decision. There's 3 different ways that you can become a member of Green Economy Canada, as well as different varying degrees in terms of cost depending on your business size, what track you choose.
What are the 3 different ways? Do we know that?
I can't remember what the first way is because they just introduced it,
Okay,
but then there's a
pathway.
lead track and an insight track.
Right.
So the lead track is really just doing your greenhouse gas emissions audit and seeing where that takes you. As Jeff mentioned, that's one of the first things that they did.
Know where you're starting, and then you know
Exactly.
how to make a plan.
Build the baseline.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Know where's, what's the low-hanging fruit that you
Yes.
could maybe easily change, or what's the bigger item that you're going to work towards.
Okay.
So you can do that, or you can do the more detailed track where you do that. You make a plan, you move forward with the plan. That's where you mentioned you get the one-on-one coaching, the training, the workshops. Networking events. You become certified as a Green Economy leader within Green Economy Canada.
And that designation, I know, Jeff, before we started recording, you noted that Georgian Bay Spirit Co. has a designation.
Correct.
What a great way to market, you've been through it. This is real change that you're making. I think that's a huge value to businesses and organizations.
Yeah, and as Jeff mentioned, I think that it's one of the things that consumers want to see more and more, and so being able to say that not only are you a green economy leader, but you're locally in our region. I think a lot of people are looking for that more and more. And one of the things that Green Economy does as well is they provide you with the information that you need to get started. Like, what are the grants that you can apply for? What are those steps? So you really get a lot of that leadership and support, through joining the cohort. And there's 2 cohorts. The first one's gonna run late fall, and so the pilot project is gonna run until about the end of 2025 as it stands right now, just to see is it viable to have a hub in our region, because it's a little bit different than something that Green Economy Canada has done before, and so we want to make sure that it is something that will work within our community.
So we need businesses to reach out to
do.
CCAT
Yes.
and learn more,
Yes.
because we want to get this thing started.
Definitely.
Amazing. Jeff, before we wrap up today's episode, could you give some advice to other business leaders in the community of how to get started?
Sure. Yeah, I think, it can be overwhelming. I think climate change can be overwhelming for everyone. But I think just getting started, and reaching out. I'm more than happy to answer any questions a business has too. But just getting started and knowing that consumers want to see products and services that are trying to make a difference is a huge win. So it's not just a great thing to do, obviously for our planet, for everyone. It can also be really beneficial for your company. So you can see cost savings, you can see improve, you can grow your customer base. So there's a lot of reasons to do it. I think just getting started, where do you do that?
Right.
And I think even just in a little initiative, whether it's starting with carbon accounting or finding your inventory, your emissions inventory, coming with a product that's maybe slightly lighter or different material, all those things people want to see, and I think that's the huge win for any business looking to become more sustainable.
And for maybe smaller businesses or not-for-profit organizations, what are some of those quick things that Georgian Bay Spirit Co. is doing internally that can maybe other businesses can copy and paste? I'm a big believer of copy and paste, something that's working well.
For sure.
So what are some of those things that maybe not product specific, but other businesses could try?
I think the first thing you can do is, depending on your organization's size too, but just starting a green team and starting those conversations. I think a lot of people have similar feelings about climate change, but starting those conversations internally and seeing where people's interests really lie and really jumping on something that maybe it's, gardening native plants, for example.
Right.
Even just putting one of those little gardens outside, which I'm sure some of you have seen the calling ones around town. Just doing a small initiative to get the ball rolling, and then usually I find someone else in your organization will kind of take the lead, right? So building that green team is really just starting to build that culture.
As a team and do it in community.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Well, thank you both for joining us. If you're interested in learning more about either of these incredible organizations or about finding more information on the Green Economy Hub pilot project, do visit their websites. You can go to the collingwoodclimateactionteam.com under their programs page to find more about the project specifically. But we look forward to seeing you again in our next episode. We'll see you on Empowered with your host, Jessica Flynn.